Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for Star Trek Discovery Season 3 Episode 2, Far From Home. This video is part of a series of videos where I review episodes of Star Trek Discovery, so I have to start with a spoiler warning for Discovery up to Season 3 Episode 2. If you haven't seen this episode yet, you will not want to watch this video, otherwise some things will be spoiled for you. So, Far From Home, so this is the episode where Saru goes on a trip to Italy with his friends from high school, and he gets caught up in this supervillain who tries to... Wait, I'm getting that confused. Far From Home. So this is the episode where we actually follow Discovery as they arrive in the, 31st century, I believe? Because last week we got Michael Burnham's journey, and this week we get Discovery's journey. Now, I talked about this last week, how I kind of knew they were going to do this format where we follow Burnham first before we meet Discovery, but I was actually under the impression that we were going to get several episodes with just Michael Burnham before we got into Discovery, and I'm actually really, really glad we didn't do that, because as I talked about in last week's episode, I wasn't a huge fan of having an entire episode with just Michael Burnham and no Discovery, and I knew that they were going to do that, and I wasn't looking forward to it. In fact, I tend to not like it whenever any show does this, because this has been done as a format before at the start of the season, of a bunch of splinter groups splint up or break up, whatever, and you have one episode that just follows one or two characters who are away from the rest of the characters, so we don't get any of the other characters, just one and two characters for that one episode, and then they follow back and go back to the rest of the cast of characters in future episodes. I didn't like that format. In fact, the one show I'm thinking about that did this is Lost, which did it in season 3, when Jack, Kate, and Sawyer were kidnapped by the others, and so one episode just focused on them entirely, and we didn't see any other characters. And then the next episode had introduced Saeed, Sun, and Jen, so we saw some of them, but we didn't get to see Locke and all the other people back at base camp until episode 3. And the producers of Lost declared this a failed format. They considered doing it that way a failure because they got a lot of complaints, a lot of audience were upset, and they said they purposely did every season premiere in the future after that so that every single character has screen time in the premiere episode so that the audience has a space to catch up with everyone. So I only bring that up because it seems like Discovery didn't learn that lesson. Lost learned the lesson, like, that's a mistake, we shouldn't do it that way, but Discovery did do it this way, and I think it's a failure too. Honestly, I think if they intercut these two episodes and made it these two episodes and intercut them together, it would have worked better rather than just having Burnham then Discovery. That being said, I like this episode way better than the other one because we get every character except for Burnham in this episode, whereas the previous episode we just got Burnham. And I don't think that would work regardless of who the character was, no matter how strong or interesting that character is. If you have that one character go alone on the journey and you see none of the other main cast, and I just think that's not a good format. But specifically being Michael Burnham, she's not a very interesting character. I talked about it last week, and in fact, seeing her on her own trying to carry an episode just hammered home to me that she isn't that well developed or that great of a character, and she's not strong enough to carry her own episode, so I think that was a mistake. I actually think she's fine as a character if you keep her in the ensemble, but if you try to hang the entire episode on her, I don't think it's enough. Now, this episode works a lot better because they're not hanging the entire episode on one person. You get everyone. And honestly, this is what I wanted to see. I was way more interested in seeing Discovery, the actual ship, than I was seeing Burnham off by herself. Now, you could argue that this is a Saru episode and it focuses on him the most, which it does, but you also get all these other characters. You get Stamets, he has equal play. You get Jojo, you get what's her face, the security officer from the Barzan from the Enterprise, Miss Yum Yum, I think was that what she said? Yum Yum or Meow Meow, or so she said something stupid in the finale, which really pissed me off. But anyway, you get her. Which I don't know. I don't think they officially made her a new, main cast member, so I kind of expect her to die. But maybe I'm wrong. We'll see. But you get her. You get yeah, all the Tilly and all the other characters. Now, one thing the producers said, or behind the scenes, whatever, press release, they said that a lot of these minor bridge crew characters who are basically just nameless, background characters, are going to get more developed, more play this season, which I really hope is the case. I kind of fought against criticism against them because the way I see it, at least they're consistent and they keep the same exact characters the whole time. Where you had other shows like even Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, where all the background bridge crew would just be rotating extras. And I was saying, well, at least they get some lines of dialogue, and at least they're actually the same characters every time. Now, when they try to hang an entire episode on them like they did with Arium, it doesn't work because they're not well developed. But just having them as background crew, I'd rather they be consistent and have the same exact characters. But the problem comes in is when they try to act like we are familiar with these characters and know them, because we don't. The thing, and that's kind of like Detmer, I feel, had her own little side plot this episode, which I didn't really get, and I wasn't, again, that interested in it because I don't know her that well. She's basically just generic helmswoman. Now, hopefully, they will develop her this season and all the other characters, so in retrospect, this will seem more interesting, and it does seem like, because they didn't really explain fully why she was so disorientated or what the hell is going on with her, some people speculated it had something to do with her eyepiece or whatever the hell that is. I thought it was just like PTSD myself, but the way they had that, did the sound effect whenever it did her point of view to show that everything was like faded. It seems like the same kind of thing they do to illustrate in TV, to illustrate when someone has PTSD. So I don't know. So this is a storyline that's going to be ongoing, and they're going to explore more. So hopefully, by doing this, they will get us more familiar with this character, but they do need to focus on these side characters more if they want us to care about them. That's all I'm saying. So, so this episode itself, I actually kind of liked this episode. I definitely liked it better than last week's episode. It was more interesting to me. Now, I've heard someone compare it to the stereotypical Western. Oh, there's the villagers and who are helpless against the big bad guys, so the heroes come in and save the day. Like this was done in The Mandalorian last year in a very generic episode, which I hated, which was boring, which is just a generic Magnificent Seven ripoff. And of course, Star Trek has been done before in like the Enterprise episode Marauders, which was another generic, boring episode. I don't think it's fair to lump this episode in with those episodes. I don't think it really followed that format, because that really wasn't the point of the episode. The episode wasn't about Saru and Tilly coming in to save the poor villagers who were being harassed. That was just like a side consequence. The main plot was about Discovery crashing on this planet and being consumed by this like parasitic ice, and then being desperate for supplies and having to negotiate to get the supplies. That was the main plot of the episode. That's what the episode was about. The thing with the evil courier, and it seems like the couriers are now like the bosses of this universe or whatever. But anyway, that's not what this episode was about. It was kind of just a side plot or a side consequence, which I think actually worked to service the main plot, so I was fine with it. It wasn't like that episode from Mandalorian or like Marauders, which was the main focus was, oh, these villagers are being terrorized by these bandits, let's help them. That's a generic bullshit, and plus Marauders had a lot more problems, but that's Enterprise Season 2, you know how I feel about that. Anyway, so I think it's unfair to compare this episode to those episodes. I think this is way better, and it wasn't really about that. It was about the characters on Discovery dealing with this crisis, having to fix the ship, and the Georgiou, her mirror universe evil ways of trying to get things done, bumping up against Saru, who's trying to kind of prove himself as the captain. And I like that. I think that was a very interesting storyline. I like the character threads with Hugh and Stamets and his arguments with, oh God, what's her face? I keep wanting to call her Jet, but hold on, I'm gonna have to pause for a second, look up her name. I am such a professional here. Yeah, Jet Reno. I was right. Her name was Jet. I didn't know that. But anyway, so yeah, her interactions with Stamets was really interesting, and how I like these two together. It's a good sort of combination, because Stamets was known as the really grumpy asshole type, but she's also grumpy, but in a different way. So she puts him in his place, which is interesting. And so, of course, he had to save the ship, whatever. It was all dependent on him doing the engineering, which is a plot device, which is fine. I don't really have that big of an issue with it. So yeah. Not much else to say. I mean, it's not like this episode was amazing, but I think it was way more interesting. It is interesting that that the Discovery crew didn't find out what the burn is, or that they were missing what happened to dilithium, because Saru talked as if the Federation was still a thing, and the guy's like, "What? Where the hell? What is your problem?" From that, they figured out that they were time travelers, and the fact that they had all antiques, and that makes sense. I like that sort of thing. I think that played out well. So this episode wasn't outstanding. It wasn't. I won't remember this as one of my favorites, but it was competent in doing what it meant to do, and it was interesting and entertaining enough. So it worked. Now at the end, when this mysterious ship came to tractor Discovery up, and they play it off as if it's these competitors. Courier competitors or whatever, who were coming to steal their dilithium. I knew it was going to be Michael Burnham. It was fucking obvious it was going to be Michael Burnham. That was the least surprising thing about this episode. Michael Burnham. Oh my God, it's Michael Burnham. I'm like, of course it is. She always has to save the day. But anyway, they introduced the whole concept of this, the couriers, competitors, these evil guys coming to the whole concept was a red herring, just to make you think that the bad guys are coming at the end to create suspense. Oh my God, they're coming, but it's actually Michael Burnham, which that's kind of dumb, honestly. But I am interested to see how Burnham interacts with the crew. It is interesting that she had been in for a year. Although, like, the way she was acting, she was like, oh my God, you guys are here. It's been so long. Like, I thought they were going to say it's been like 5 years or 10 years, but she was like, oh, it's been a year. I'm like, really? That's it? You're acting? She's just so melodramatic in this show. Sometimes plays up like the melodrama just way too much, and it's just like, oh my God, it's been so long. I'm like, it's only been a year. Calm down. Seriously. I don't know. That's just the way I look at it. But anyway, my rating for Spider-Man Far From Home, Star Trek Discovery Season 3, Episode 2, Far From Home, out of 10. I'm going to give this an 8. Extremely good. It was a decent episode. It was a good episode. It did what it wanted to do. It served the purpose it needed to serve. It was entertaining in the process. It got a lot of good character interactions to help develop the whole Discovery theme. I think the show is much better when it focuses on the ensemble. Whether or not Michael Burnham is in that ensemble or not, that's fine. I think she works fine in the ensemble. They just need to focus on the ensemble and not just focus on 1 or 2 characters, because then it's not very interesting. Just me. Anyway, that is it for my review for Far From Home. I shall be back next week and every week to cover Star Trek Discovery, and I also cover a lot of other shows on my channel, many more Star Trek shows and Star Trek videos, and I also cover other shows like The Expanse, BoJack Horseman, Breaking Bad, and more. So be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that, and thanks a lot for watching.